We did get some good news on, I believe it was Friday. That would have been 2 days ago. But I do want to remind you all that the Miccosukee tribe have been protesting Alligator Alcatraz from the beginning. So this is a TikTok video posted by Greg, gre.vo. Give him a follow. He's out there with the protesters. So this is a guy who goes by the name of Popeye, calls himself Popeye. He is of the Osceola bloodline of the Miccosukee tribe, pardon me. Here he is protesting against Alligator Alcatraz upon the announcement of its opening. This was back in June.
My name's William Osceola. I go by Popeye, Secretary of the Miccosukee Indian Tribe. Out here today to protest Alligator Alcatraz. It's important to note that people need to stay involved with their government because if not, history backslides to what happened already. You're seeing a situation here where they're trying to contain a group of people, take away their rights, their freedom, their ability to be free, to be sovereign. That's literally why my people are out here to begin with. We don't want history to keep repeating itself, so I urge you, learn your history, stay engaged, stay involved, never give up that fight. That's what they want. They want you to give up. They want you to tear each other apart. You can't give them what they want. Thank you.
Never give up. Betty Osceola said the same thing. Never give up. Well, look what happened on Friday. Judge orders that Alligator Alcatraz detention be shut down for now. A federal judge on Thursday ordered that no more immigrant detainees be sent to a center in the Florida Everglades and that much of the facility be dismantled. The ruling rebuked the state and federal governments for failing to consider potential environmental harms before building the facility known as Alligator Alcatraz. The judge gave both branches of the government 60 days to move out existing detainees and begin to remove fencing, lighting, power generators, and other materials. The order also prohibits any new construction at the site. The decision is a major legal setback for the detention center, the nation's first state-run facility for federal immigration detainees, which has faced several lawsuits and numerous complaints about poor conditions and other problems. The state immediately filed a notice saying it intended to appeal. Judge Kathleen Williams of the Federal District Court in Miami found that the state and federal governments had violated a federal law that requires an environmental review before any major federal construction project. Judge Williams partly granted a preliminary injunction sought by environmentalists and the Miccosukee tribe, whose members live in the area. So, are they going to comply with this? Well, the boy from the box, as we call him, Tom Homan, says, yeah, they will comply with the order.
Alligator Alcatraz, the judge ordering it to be shut down. What does that look like for the ICE agents and then also?
Look, they're not going to stop us doing what we're doing. You know, we'll follow the judge's order and we'll litigate it and we'll appeal it. But bottom line is, we're going to continue to arrest public safety threats and national security threats every day across this country. When we have to send them to another facility, that's what we're going to do. That's why the president has asked for 100,000 beds in the big, beautiful bill. So we're going to build 100,000 beds. So we're not going to have a lack of bed space. For every illegal alien we arrest, we need a bed. And that's why the 100,000 beds is important. So we're going to keep doing what we're doing. And these radical judges make these decisions. They may slow us up a bit, but they're not going to stop us.
Just to be clear, when you say you're going to follow the judge's order, that means Alligator Alcatraz is not going to be
We
shut
follow
down.
every judge's order while we appeal it and litigate it.
So it will be shut down in the interim.
I don't think that decision's been made yet. We're reviewing.
Okay.
It's a DOJ question. We're reviewing the order, and we'll see where we go from there. But we're not going to defy court. We'll just take it to a higher level and appeal it.
I know.
But in the meantime, they are going to essentially have to shut it down. Even though the order doesn't explicitly say it has to cease operations entirely, they got to remove fencing, they got to remove the construction. They have to dismantle it, which means they're not going to be able to house people there anymore. The Trump administration had argued that a review under the National Environmental Policy Act did not apply because while the center houses federal immigration detainees, it is run by the state. Okay, so that is, of course, an incoherent defense. Okay, just because it's run by the state, it's enforcing federal immigration policy. The people sweeping people up to put them, they're ICE officers. It's obviously a federal action. That was obviously a ridiculous argument, which is why we held out some hope. We did a piece on this last week when the judge had delayed a final verdict, hoping that this would be the ruling, and it is. At the same time, the administration of Governor Ron DeSantis argued that its authority to operate the detention center came from an agreement with the federal government delegating some immigration enforcement powers to Florida. Again, that is an incredibly weak argument. It is, you are enforcing federal policy. So the argument that you're going to skirt federal regulations because it's a state action is pretty ridiculous in this context. But Ron DeSantis did try to muster up some tough guy vibes here. DeSantis just announced the deportations will continue at Alligator Alcatraz after an activist judge ordered they start shutting the facility down. We're not going to be deterred. We're totally in the right on this. We're going to open another facility. Border bathhouse. I mean, deportation depot. Deportation depot.
Center down in South Florida at Alligator Alcatraz. I just wanted to just say this was not something that was unexpected. This is a judge that was not going to give us a fair shake. This was preordained. Very much an activist judge that is trying to do policy from the bench. This is not going to deter us. We're going to continue working on the deportations, advancing that mission. We knew that this would be something that would likely happen, and we will respond accordingly. That have already been ordered to be removed by the current system, and yet the previous administration didn't want to do anything about it. We're now in this position where we're leading the state efforts to help the Trump administration actually enforce the law and actually remove these illegal aliens from not just Florida, but from our country. And that's something that we didn't have for 4 years. And now that's something that we're absolutely on board with making sure happens going forward. And so we're not going to be deterred. We're totally in the right on this. But I would also note, because of the success of Alligator Alcatraz, there's demand for more. So I did announce that we are going to be opening another facility right outside of Jacksonville in Baker County, and we've called that the Deportation Depot. And so that is something that will be able to hold another 2,000. There's an airport close by, and so you have the processing and then the removal.
They're doing the Hakeem Jeffries thing. They're going by the A is for, Americanism, not autocracy, whatever it is. Yeah, stealing his act there. So this is Ariana Jasmine. She made a good point here. This is, I think, important to note. Florida tried to create Alligator Alcatraz. The Miccosukee tribe stood up and sued. As a result, a federal judge has ordered the closure of Alligator Alcatraz within 60 days. We need to thank the Miccosukee Nation for their courage and attention to this fight. This victory wouldn't have happened without their commitment to protecting our environment. Yes, yeah, they were instrumental to bringing these lawsuits, and that's what makes this such kind of a poetic story, is that it's the natives who resisted an ethnic cleansing campaign against them over 150 years ago who ended up stopping this. So this is an article in the heart of the Miccosukee, the Native American tribe that successfully closed Alligator Alcatraz. The community found refuge from the white persecution deep in the Everglades swamp centuries ago. And this week, together with environmental groups, they succeeded in stopping the immigration detention center built on their ancestral lands. Now, this is a little off topic. I try to keep these segments as concise as possible, but I couldn't resist putting this in the opening paragraph. When tourists wearing Alligator Alcatraz t-shirts walked into the Miccosukee Indian Village craft shop in Florida last week, Troy Sanders, a 35-year-old member of the tribe who works as a museum guide, felt anger. Yeah, of course. I'm sorry. How dumb a piece of shit do you have to be to walk into a Native American-owned gift shop with an Alligator Alcatraz t-shirt on? Like, how big a fucking loser do you have to be to do that? Like, that's like one of the most obnoxious acts you could commit. There are people on the side of the road selling t-shirts that say Alligator Alcatraz, and then other people come into the store thinking it's okay, saying hello, being friendly. They have a huge disconnect from what this all means to us. The Everglades, the vast swamp ecosystem west of Miami, is meant for our tribes to protect life, to safeguard it, not to stop it, Sanders says. For much of the 19th century, Florida people fought to avoid relocation. So this gives you a little bit of the history of these tribes. All native people southeast of the Mississippi had to be deported and removed from their homes to Indian Territory, which was Oklahoma. This included the Miccosukee and the Seminoles. Abiaka, a very old Miccosukee chief, knew we weren't going to win this war against the Americans. He took 100 of his people, Miccosukee and Seminoles, and disappeared into the Everglades, Sanders said. The swamps were their salvation. It was very difficult for the U.S. Army to operate logistically in the Everglades, moving their men, artillery, and supplies. That's why we're still here, because otherwise we would have been taken to Fort Brooke, which is now Tampa, put on a boat, crossed the Gulf of New Orleans, and crossed the Gulf to New Orleans, and forced to join the rest of the Native Americans on the so-called Trail of Tears, herded like cattle to Oklahoma, Sanders summarizes. So yeah, isn't that a poetic story? That these people who are the descendants of this 100 or so Native American resistors who, to avoid being ethnically cleansed from their homeland, retreated into the Everglades to hide from the army where they couldn't get them. They end up settling there, never surrendering. That's why the nickname for these tribes, they call them the unconquered people, the Seminoles and the Miccosukee. They end up settling there, making their home there, and then 170 years later, when the government builds this detention center, it's the descendants of those resistors who end up shutting it down. See, that's a great story. That gives you some hope. Maybe our next documentary could be on them.
Yeah, this is where, hey, look, a lot of people will come at us when we cover immigration about, suppression of wages. And absolutely, man, when they sell you that idea that we were a nation welcoming of immigrants in the 19th century and early 20th century, as if that was nobility versus nativists. No, man, that was business interests wanted to suppress wages. Wages had been growing for decades up until about 1860, and they wanted to suppress the power of labor. So they brought in mass immigration. Lincoln openly spoke of the need to bring in immigrants in order to bring down the cost of labor. I have long felt that was not an accident that you had this situation at the border. We have the world's largest military by orders of magnitude. You cannot argue that we can't control our border. So yes, I do believe there was an element of wanting to suppress wages there. I don't believe these people care about that. If they did, they wouldn't. In every other area, they fight to suppress wages, right? I mean, especially DeSantis, Florida. They didn't they in Florida? They had a vote. They had a referendum to raise the minimum wage, and they fought to get around the referendum.
And now what are they doing? What is the other thing they're doing? They're trying to bring child labor back, right?
They're trying to bring back child labor in multiple states. So you know a thing by what it does. You cannot believe that these people in this one area care about the working person and raising the standard of living and the wage for the working person, when in every single other area, they do everything possible to immiserate working people, from suppressing their wages to taking away their health care to removing environmental regulations, removing housing regulations, avoiding any method of controlling the rising cost of housing, everything they can to fuck working people to the benefit of the wealthy. They will try. If they really cared about stopping this problem, why aren't they arresting any of the employers who employ illegal immigrants? Why don't they institute an E-Verify system, which would put it all on the employer? That would put it all on the employer. because in the end, this is not about helping workers. It's about distracting workers while they bring in automation, while they bring in AI, and don't need you anymore. This is a way of sustaining political support from a large number of voters by dangling a shiny object in front of them and telling them something that, makes sense on the surface. Yeah, well, you get rid of these immigrants, you're going to get a higher wage. Well, not. Who was it who tweeted out the apple picking robot?
No, it was, Charlie Kirk tweeted that out. Yeah.
Charlie Kirk. They are salivating, and you can see it when they bring this up to Basant, when they bring this up to the pigman, Lutnick. Immediately, they start talking about, if you ask them, well, do we have enough American labor to do these jobs? Automation. Immediately, they start talking about AI and automation. Why do they have that on the brain? They are salivating about getting rid of you. All of this immigration, it's just a distraction. In this one area, they care about working people, but in no other area. Does that make any sense? Clearly not. Right. That is why, yes, I understand workers who say, well, it's elitist to not care about the wages. No, we care about the wages. We just don't believe that's why they're doing this.
Well, obviously. And, it's a great story that this was shut down. And, they are starting to face, the administration is starting to face losses on this issue, which is encouraging, because it seemed, in February, March, April, that they were just going to be unstoppable. But they won a mandate in 2024 to control the border. Whether you agree with that or not, it's indisputable that they won a mandate to do that. But they completely abused that mandate.
Right.
They abused that mandate and took it places that vast majorities of Americans are not comfortable with. The complete railroading of Abrego Garcia is one. This is another. Just they handled this in such bad faith, because they approached this with bad faith from the beginning.
It's not a bug.
Now
it's
they're
a feature.
just having to retreat. Yeah,
it's all about the show. It's all about the show. It's not about the substance. If they even really wanted to get rid of immigrant labor, like I said, the easy way is to deal with it at the employer level. Why don't they do that if they actually want to control the problem? This is all about creating a spectacle for a certain voting bloc while they pursue an agenda that is completely contrary to that voting bloc's interests.
Please clap.